Welcome back to the most boring, slow, tedious debate recap stream of all time. I'm Kudos. And it's finally the Finkelstein versus Pestiny Israel Palestine debate. Once again, we are doing the part two of the semi-final recap of the first hour of the debate. There's a lot to talk about in this semi-final recap. Right now, we're only recapping the first half hour. That's why it's the semi-final recap of hour one. In the final recap of hour one, we will discuss the from 30 minutes to 60 minutes into the debate and kind of tying it all together, right? So that will be the grand final for hour one, at which point we will move on to hour two. All right. We're gonna make sure that as we get through this debate, we're not gonna miss anything. We want to hear everybody out. We want to give everyone a fair shake. We're gonna make plenty of judgments. This is not one of those. Oh, we're gonna hold our judgment until the end. No, we're gonna judge throughout, but we can change our judgments. We can look into things, right? And the more you look into things, even small numbers of things, you start to find a lot of interesting little things that you notice, things you didn't notice before. I suppose that's also the benefit of having many people all paying attention to something, is that they can sort of pool their ideas together. So let's recap the first half hour. We'll start this part two of the semi-final recap by a little preliminary summary. All right, and now in order to do this, I've actually made a document on Krita, and why don't we just work with that for a second? We're gonna just kind of talk through it on Krita, because what I've done here is I've sort of laid out the order, who spoke in what order, what they said, basically. Now, I had to really summarize a lot of stuff. I used a combination of human intelligence and artificial intelligence to sort of work out summaries of some of these longer points that people made, right? Now, when it comes to shorter exchanges between parties, I might just write the exact words, right? For some of these, like Norm's opening statement, 995 words. He talked for around 10 minutes or so. Okay, he said a lot of shit. But at the very end, and his opening was pretty well organized. He was very well thought through. It was a great opening statement to kind of establish what's going on in 48. His conclusion was this: neither? Is it neither or neither? Neither side. I prefer neither. Neither side was committed to the letter of the partition resolution, and both sides aborted it. Okay, now if you're asking what's the partition resolution, well, if you're asking that, I am so happy that you're here, because I guess it means that you didn't watch any of the other previous debate recaps, which, by the way, totally not necessary. I would not ever advise anyone to go back and watch the past debate recaps, unless you want to. I guess you can do whatever you want, but it's not necessary. If you want to understand what's been going on, you literally haven't missed anything, because we're gonna re-say it all. We're gonna say it all much more succinctly than before, right? So basically, I'm gonna tell you like what took me 4 hours to sort of mull together. I'm gonna tell you that in like 2 minutes, depending on how many rabbit trails I go off, of course. So, by the way, this is a great stream to sleep to, because I'm just gonna be babbling, man. And you can relax. You don't have to worry about missing anything. We're going to go through it all. It's going to be all documented. Okay? It's going to be fine. So we open the debate with Lex Friedman. He is the guy whose podcast it is that has hosting the debate. Okay? His name is Lexifer Friedman, and he is a doofus. I believe he is extremely biased towards the pro-Israel side. If he's not consciously biased towards them, he's at least unconsciously, because he's making a lot of decisions that clearly show him trying to push the pro-Israel side, while at the same time he's trying to don the hat of a centrist. He says, here's my centrist hat. I'm right in the middle. I'm just trying to call the balls and strikes like I see them, right? And I believe, in my opinion, is that Lex is also pro-Israel, and he would like to create the image that even the centrists are at least more open to Israel's side. He thinks that they at least have a strong argument. They at least have something with, it's worth pondering or worth considering. And you know what? We are considering it, aren't we? But they have no argument. So in the first half hour, we're going to discover a few things. So I'd say the pro-Israel side, which is Benny Morris and good old Pestiny Stephen Moselli? Mr. Morelli. Mr. Morelli here is pretty much one of the worst people ever. And I'm not exaggerating at all. One of them. I didn't say he was the worst guy ever, okay? I didn't say that. I said he is one of the worst people ever. There's certain people that once they get so bad, they're sort of in this bad zone where it's like, that's where all the worst people are. And he's one of them. He's over there. Not there. He's a little off to the side from there. He's there. All right. So he's one of the worst people ever. On the anti-Israel side, of the pro-Palestine side, we have Norman Finkelstein, a legend, a crotchety old grumpy man, a brilliant crotchety old grumpy man, and a guy who 99.9% of the time is spot on correct with his takes on things. He, I believe, his expertise is in international law, especially with an emphasis on Israel and Palestine. So he's definitely considered a scholar in this field. Benny Morris is a Jewish Israeli historian, and he is well renowned in his field of historians. He's produced a lot of seminal or what am I saying? Great work, influential work as a historian. His skills and his whatever in documenting various historical things have been invaluable in understanding completely the history of the state of Israel and Zionism and all that shit. So basically, this guy is good on the science aspect of history. However, like many experts, they like to get out of their own field of expertise and get into other shit, and then they think that they're going to be just as great at it. He's a great historian. He's not a great moralist, ethicist, philosopher, right? The whole realm of debating and putting forth, good arguments is severely lacking. Also, his moral judgment. The dude, as we're going to see within the first half hour, He's a fucking disgusting racist asshole. Deep down. Like, he has an ugly heart. His heart is as black as the like a black hole or something that's very, very black and dark. And I mean that metaphorically. Okay? I'm saying that he's rotten on the inside. Okay? That's what we're dealing with Benny Morris here. A smart guy, a competent guy, evil to the bone, and very incompetent when it comes to anything that involves not just like his work is in documenting factual things. Where he falters is in how he spins and narrativizes and frankly cherry picks and ignores things that aren't convenient to his argument. He wrote a bunch of books a long time ago that documented these not only atrocities, instances of Israelis driving Palestinians off their land. He also documented thought leadership, philosophers within the Zionist movement, and how they conceived of the idea of Israel, which included removing Palestinians, Arabs from, quote unquote, their land. And in the totality of his work, he paints a big picture of a very clear, what would we call it, conclusion, that basically this: the Nakba was the inevitable consequence of partition given the nature of Zionism. What is the Nakba? Okay, so we're talking about the Nakba. That's basically the framing. When Lex Luthor, I want to call him Lex Luthor, when Lex Friedman opens the debate, he asks, tell us about 1948. And the period around there, like 1947 and 1949. Very clever boy. He knows exactly which years are between are around 1948. Really clever guy. He also asked that the speakers tell us what's important and helps us understand what's going on today. And helps us understand the roots of all of this. It started before 48. Okay, so basically we're talking about the Nakba, this tragedy of, in a very short period. We haven't gotten into the details of the Nakba, so I'm not going to get into that. But it was just the big, super big atrocity of driving about 700,000 Palestinians off of their land, out of their cities, out of their neighborhoods, force them to flee to either other countries or, in some cases, other places in Israel, but like into a completely fucked situation, right? So the Nakba was basically like this huge, traumatic, horrific act of genocide. And that's what happened. Right? And this side is saying, yeah, that's not only what happened, that's what they wanted to happen. That's what was going to happen, whether or not the Arabs signed the partition resolution. The partition resolution was this deal cooked up in the UN, literally, like they're in fucking New York City, and a bunch of people from Europe and and a few other like non-European countries, but basically it's USA and Europe, and they're like, what should we do about all these like Jewish refugees? It's we just had World War II, and there's like a grip of these people, and why don't we send them to Palestine? And tell you what we'll do is we'll take that land and we'll just carve it the fuck up, kind of however we feel like, and then we will just give the A-OK to anyone who's Jewish or whatever to just go there, and then they can definitely do genocide on the, or maybe just try not to do genocide, but definitely this is your land now and you can do whatever you want because you're a sovereign state now, and they're not sovereign states. Palestine's not a sovereign state, so they can't do shit, they can't say shit, they can't whatever. Why not? Well, we do have an explanation with that. Moeen brings up the fact since the 30s, before World War II, the Zionist and Hashemite leadership of Jordan colluded to prevent the establishment of an independent Arab state in Palestine in the late 40s. Right? So this place was basically controlled by the Ottoman Empire until whenever that didn't work out anymore. Again, we can't just go and talk about every fucking thing. I'm not going to talk about the Ottoman Empire. I'd like to. Maybe we can do a stream for that. But for now, let's just stay on the track. Okay? So, yeah, basically, France and England are these colonial countries, and they're basically like running most of these Arab countries as well. And they have, all the different fuckery of the world stage and forming states and all this shit. It's a bunch of politics, right? So basically, we could simplify like that. Why did the Palestinians never have an official state? Well, because of fucking politics. That's all it fucking was. Okay? So, this is valuable land, right? It's valuable land. It's over on the Mediterranean, fucking olive trees, and got the sea right there. It's just, they wanted, everyone fucking wanted this place. So they're not going to just let a bunch of people who don't even have your same religion or skin color. The nerve of these people to be so inconsiderate as to not be my same culture and religion and race. You fucking assholes. So they had it coming. Now, in this debate, Norm Finkelstein opens up and he says straight up, neither side. Why does he say neither side was committed to the partition resolution? Didn't Israel want the partition resolution? Didn't Israel agree to the partition resolution? Didn't they sign it? Yeah, they did. But that's not what it says. It says committed to the letter. To the letter of the partition resolution. Because the partition resolution, I think, had some flowery bullshit about how, like, this is where the line is, and you can't push it any farther. And also, you're not allowed to drive people off their land. You have to let the Arab people who are already there, you have to let them live there, and it's okay. Like, I'm not getting any of this exactly right, but basically, the partition resolution on paper sounded a little better than it ever had been or was planned to be by the people running the Israeli state at the time. I think it's called the Yeshuv. Okay? And they had no intention of allowing there to be a majority of Arabs. They wanted the vast majority of everyone living there to be Jewish, and they had no qualms about doing fucking abhorrent atrocities in order to get that to happen, right? Some of it was just your standard capitalist bullshit where you like buy up land and shit, or you chop up land, and there were a few little tricks of non-kinetic ways of getting people off their land, but in many cases, they literally just stormed in there, bulldozed their fucking house, salted the fucking earth, booted these motherfuckers out. Fuck off, get out of here. If you try to stay here, I'll kill you, kind of shit. Some of them, they didn't even give them that courtesy. They just straight up killed him. There were whole like militant groups in Israel at the time, and before then, that would occasionally do like a historically like fucked up tragic slaughtering of multiple hundreds of people in a single village. I don't know how. I don't even think modern people, unless you live in a village and can try to sit down and appreciate what it's like for multiple hundreds of people in your village to be slaughtered by an occupying army that surrounds you on all sides. It's really hard to see, like, what could fucking, like, oh, but the UN treaty, but the partition, the Palestinian representatives refused to even consider the deal. Yeah. Palestinians rejected it outright. That's one of the very clear points that Norm made right out the gate, is the Palestinians had wanted nothing to do with this partition resolution. Norm actually thought that he thought that it would have been a fine. He thought it would have been okay, except that the Israelis were also had no intention of following that partition resolution. They had genocidal intent, right? Palestinians did not want to even entertain it because they're like, no, this is our whole country. We're a nation. We may not be a state, but we're a people. We have a place. We're people in a place. What else do you fucking want? Why aren't they a state? To be a state, you just got to be a people in a place. But whatever. They're like, no, you can't. First of all, 66% of the people were Arabs. 33% were Jews. And the partition resolution was, how about 50-50, 49-50, or 45-55 in favor of the Jews, who were only a third of the population. It was a bad deal anyway. Now, they didn't really care that it was a bad deal. They didn't want to do any kind of deal. They're like, we, on principle, are not going to give up any percentage of our country to have you establish this fucking state with the military and a wall and all this bullshit, right? We don't want that. We're not even going to consider it. You Israeli settlers have been streaming in here since the 1920s, right? For the last 20 years, 30 years. And you've been being real dicks about it. Doing atrocities and shit. You got your terrorist groups, these terrorist cells. They're going around and intimidating fucking people. Right? They even had... They exported that shit. They stoked anti-Semitism in Arab countries all surrounding to try to force more Jewish people to get the fuck out and go to Israel. Right? These were like concerted efforts to like bring in more people. They didn't care if all they had to do was like put them in danger where they already live. Right? Because they weren't in danger. You put them in danger and then they'll come here to feel safe. Right? Basically just trying to scare everyone into it. So the pro-Israel side says basically that was a great deal. And the fact that the Arabs didn't take the deal means we can just fucking genocide them for the next 50 years, 70 years, 80 years, 100 years, forever. Right? Yeah, we could just genocide them. It's fine. It's fine. Right? So let's go through this again. So, the opening question. Tell us about 48. He tells us. He says a lot of stuff. Again, he says 995 words. He talks for 10 minutes. I've been talking for way more than 10 minutes, and I've said way less shit. So, hey. Who am I? I'm no Norm Finkelstein, that's for sure. I'm not succinct. I'm not concise. The UN wrote up a two-state deal, which he, in his opinion, he thought could have been okay. And he says this line, if, and this is a big if, if the Zionists had been committed to, this basically peaceful, liberal, everyone's got equal rights and it's all cool and we won't treat anyone differently and Jews won't have any extra rights over anyone else. It's all going to be equal, right? This is what they testified during these UN meetings, So he's like, if you literally exactly did that the way he said it, it could have been okay. However, that big if was not true. The Jews had no intention, and again, part of this is when I'm saying I'm using the in its sense of as a definite article, right? If I were to say dogs have 2 ears, dogs have fur, dogs have tails, right? I'm talking about all dogs. I'm generalizing. If I say the dogs, and I'm talking specifically about my neighbor's dogs, I could say the dogs have very cute little fluffy tails. They're little and they're fluffy. I'm not saying dogs have fluffy tails. I'm saying the dogs. When I say the Jews, I am referring to the yeshuva, the community of Zionists, who in fact were all Jews, in this case, as representatives of the Jews, who are pushing this whole idea of this is a state for the Jews, right? This kind of language can get clipped and fucked around and like, oh my God, this guy's fucking racist. He's anti-Semitic. Obviously, everyone's going to say that as soon as you could literally say, oh, I hope the children in Palestine are okay. That's anti-Semitic. Whatever. I'm talking about actual anti-Semitism. I do not think it is right to say this is what Jews do in general, right? What I'm saying is that's what these Jews did in this situation. Not all Jews, these particular group, this subset of group. In the debate, they're calling them the Yeshuv. They call them the Zionists. They call them Israel, right? That's what I mean when I say the Jews. I do not mean old Jewish people. I don't even mean at all like a significant number of the Jewish people. A literal insignificant number of people. Just like if I say the dogs upstairs have cute fluffy tails. It doesn't mean all dogs have cute fluffy tails. Some dogs got big flappy wappy tails, right? So that reason I'm using the definite article. And this has to be understood in context. I'm telling a story where there are 2 basically characters, which we're constantly speaking of collectively, the Palestinians, the Zionists, right? Maybe I'll just say Zionists instead of Jews. But part of this is the actual, the number one most like simple concept that stops someone from being able to be anti-Zionist is understanding that Zionism is not Judaism. The majority of all Zionists are Christians. Christian fundamentalists make up the biggest number of Zionists in this world. They are the ones that are pushing to fund Israel. They are the ones who are pushing to destroy Palestinians. The reason they're Zionists, it's not that they hate Arabs. They're literally invisible to them. They're invisible. They're only seen as like, oh, there's probably like these little terrorists or whatever. They're just kind of this thing. That's why we have to have an army and a military, a strong force, and blah, 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 blah. It's just like this side thing. Like Christian evangelicals it just doesn't even cross their mind that there were and there are people who live on that land who are being genocided. And like, they don't think of it that way. All they think of is the poor little God's chosen people are in their little tiny country and they're constantly getting attacked by Arabs. And to them, that is an all-encompassing word. Arabs. What are Arabs? What are Arabs? Like, what are they? What does that mean when you say Arabs? I don't even know how to answer that. Let's talk about it with a little segment I will call What Are Things? So for this, we're going to look at Wikipedia. An ethnic group, mainly inhabiting the Arab world in West Asia and North Africa. A significant Arab diaspora is present in various parts of the world. Yeah, so this is why I didn't want to say they're people that come from Arabia or the Arab Peninsula, because I don't know if that's entirely right. And I think, yeah, obviously, they move to other places. Voluntarily or forcibly. Arab immigrants who voluntarily or forcibly migrated from their native lands to non-Arab countries primarily. Okay, so yeah, that's a thing. Arabs have been in the Fertile Crescent for thousands of years. The Fertile Crescent. This is that region here. Crescent-shaped region in the Middle East spanning modern-day Iraq, Israel, Jordan, Lebanon, Palestine, and Syria, together with northern Kuwait, southeastern Turkey, and western Iran. Some authors also include Cyprus and northern Egypt. Some authors. Okay. So I guess if you have, ethnicity that originates from this area, you are Arab, I guess. In the 9th century, the Assyrians made written reference to Arabs as inhabitants of the Levant, Mesopotamia, and Arabia. Throughout the ancient Near East, Arabs established influential civilizations starting from 3000 BC onwards. Influential civilizations starting in 3000 BC onwards, such as Dilmun Garamagan, playing a vital role in trade between Mesopotamia and the Mediterranean. Other prominent tribes include Midian, Ad, Tamud, mentioned in the Bible and the Quran. Later, in 900 BC, the Kedarites enjoyed close relations with the nearby Canaanites and Aramean states, and their territory extended from Lower Egypt to southern Levant. And Lower Egypt, I believe, is northern Egypt. That's the lower part, right? It's not upper as in north. To southern Levant. From 1200 BC, let me double check that. Is that right? Yeah, Lower Egypt is the northernmost region. Okay. From 1200 BC to 110 BC, powerful kingdoms emerged such as Saba, Liya, Minayan, Kataban, Hadramat, Aswan, Homerite emerged in Arabia. According to the Abrahamic traditions, Arabs are descendants of Abraham through his son Ishmael. Cool. That's crazy. Okay. During classical antiquity, the Nabateans established their kingdom with Petra as the capital in 300 BC. Okay, I'm not going to go through the whole history. I'm kind of curious about modern day Arabs. Who's an Arab, who's not? Oh, remember we were talking about the Ottoman Empire before? Oh, we could read a little bit about that, but I kind of don't want to. We're trying to get through the first half hour of the debate. We're trying to understand it on a very detailed micro level. Don't you get it? Don't you get what we're trying to do? All right. Yeah. And yeah. Okay. It's fine. You can point out the fact that I've already been streaming for 30 minutes. So if you wanted to get to know the first 30 minutes of the debate, you could have just watched the fucking debate. Technically, that is true. But that's not what we're here to do. We're here to slow everything down and really get the big picture. Okay? And it takes a long time. It takes a long time to get through bullshit. Okay, so I'm just going to start over again. What's happened in the 48? There was this deal. Nobody wanted to do it because Zionists were trying to expel the indigenous people from the land. And they used the Arab-Israeli War in 47 as a pretext to do that very thing. And that very thing actually, in fact, happened. Now, Benny has got a thing, right? He says, okay, by the way, Lex comes in. He said, Norm quoted several things that you said, Benny. Maybe comment on that. He doesn't, but he does basically give his general argument, which is this. The partition plan was the internationally endorsed solution backed by precedent and necessity due to irreconcilable Arab-Jewish conflict. 2. Arab leaders and states refused any Jewish sovereignty, launching immediate attacks in 47 and 48 to thwart the UN plan, escalating to a full-scale war. All right? So, from Benny's retelling of this, it was the Arab leaders and states who launched attacks just because they didn't want Jewish sovereignty. So he's referring to not Palestine. Right? I suppose he means Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Egypt, fucking Lebanon, Jordan, all the surrounding countries, I guess. He's saying we're launching attacks. I don't know. He doesn't go into a lot of detail. He literally just says Arab leaders and states, right? Mass Arab displacement resulted from war, but it was not premeditated expulsion. Benny argues that had the partition been accepted, a Jewish state with an Arab minority might have emerged peacefully. That's interesting. An Arab minority. 66% of the people are Arab. 33% are Jewish. And if they accept the partition resolution, it's going to break the country basically in half. Right? Okay, so I guess they're saying that half of that original 66% of, or not even half of that, it would be half, basically, it would be 50% of the whole country. So that would leave one country of 100% Arabs and a country of, I don't know, I'm trying to picture what that would look like. It would be like, it'd be that 33% plus, I don't know. Yeah, I guess it would have been an Arab minority. There would probably be fewer. If that's assuming you took the whole, if everything's mixed up and you just cut it in half with equal populations on both sides, except one side had all the Jewish people. I guess, had it been accepted, right? So that's a big if, right? This is like also talking, you know, and to be fair, both sides have made arguments of here's what would have happened if things had been different, right? That is, those are fair arguments to make, okay? Sometimes they're a little stupid, though. And sometimes they're a little based on nothing. And sometimes there's these really, really big ifs. Right? Israel succeeded by preparing for. And by the way, this is also a point that they're going to contest very, very much. Is that you cannot partition a country and try to establish a Jewish majority inside someone else's country without displacing people. It might maybe technically work out in a fantasy scenario, but that's not how real life works. You're going to be drawing lines on a map, and then you're going to walk out there and be like, okay, so you got to fuck off. You can stay, I guess. You're over there. And you can have like half of your place, right? Like it's there's just so many things to consider and think about. You can't just draw lines on a map and then tell people, okay, go, do it. That's it. Like, maps aren't even fucking accurate. Like, you don't even know where the fucking line is. It's ridiculous. All right. And his final point was that Israel succeeded by preparing for statehood and winning the war. Palestinians failed to establish a state due to rejectionism and poor leadership, leading to lasting statelessness. Rejectionism. I'm curious about rejectionism. What is rejectionism? A policy or attitude of rejecting something. You've got a real bad tude, my man. Your attitude is of rejecting things. There's also an Iraqi insurgent group called the Rejectionists. Epistemic rejectionism. Is this what he's referring to? Is this philosophical? Is this like there's Zionism and then there's rejectionism? Is this something like that? Do the Arabs write books and stuff about their holding strong to the philosophy, the principle of rejectionism? Redirected from epistemic rejectionism. We just get Hartree Field. What? This doesn't even say rejectionism. Rejectionist positions. The rejectionist position rejects implicit definitions that involve existential commitments. Oh, wait a minute. Rejectionism isn't even on Wikipedia because rejectionism itself rejects the idea of having some kind of definable quality. Ooh, wait a minute. There's an Islamic term, those who reject. Rafida, or rejectors, refer to those Shia Muslims who reject the legitimacy of the caliphates of Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman in favor of Ali ibn Abi Talib, the cousin of and son-in-law of the Islamic prophet Muhammad. In particular, the term Rafida appears in Sunni polemics as a derogatory nickname for Twelvers, who constitute the overwhelming majority of the Shia community. In turn, Twelvers have been Twelvers have reinterpreted this nickname favorably to signify their rejection of perceived Sunni oppression. Okay, so they're considered rejectors of truth. Rejectors of truth. So that I don't think that's what he's saying in terms of. Okay, rejectionist front, Palestinian political. Okay, this is probably it. I should have read that one first. So this is actually related to Palestine. The rejectionist front, the front of the Palestinian forces rejecting solutions of surrender, was a political coalition formed in 1974. Okay. So, no, this cannot be what he is referring to because he was clearly talking about what happened leading up to 47. This is like a bunch of years later. Okay. Anyway. So anyway, this was one Palestinian group who was against a program adopted by the Palestinian Liberation Organization and the Palestinian National Congress. Okay. So this is not who he's referring to when he says rejectionism. And I want to just double check because I'm reading from a summary. I want to make sure he actually even said the word rejectionism, or is that something I made up? Okay, Pestiny said it was largely instigated because of the Arab rejectionism of the 47 partition plan. History is about Palestinian. Okay, this is not in hour one. Okay. So, yeah, the exact word rejectionism was not used by Benny, it was used by Pestiny. But it made its way into the summary of Benny's thing. In Palestine, in May of 1948, a second stage began. The word. Let me just clarify. The war had two parts in it. The first part was the Arab community in Palestine, its militiamen attacking the Jews from November 1947. In other words, from the day after the UN partition resolution it was passed, Arab gunmen were, quote, busy shooting up Jews, and that snowballed into a full-scale civil war between the two communities in Palestine. Oh, okay, sorry, this is connected. In May 1948, a second stage began in the war in which the Arab states invaded the new state, attacking the new state, and they too were defeated, and thus the state of Israel emerged. In the course of this two-stage war, a vast Palestinian refugee problem occurred. And after that, the transfer, the expulsion, the thing that people call the Nakba, happened. When he's talking about the failure of the Palestinian state, he says, never bothered to even try to create a state. Now, who is it? I don't know whose job it is to bother to try to create a state. The only difference between a state and just a people and a place is whether the United Nations decides to declare you as a state. They don't even have very clear rules on it. They might have some guidelines written somewhere, but it's a pretty loose sort of thing of are you in the club or not? So I don't know how he knows that nobody ever bothered to try to create one. But as Moeen Rabbani points out later, there were active politics happening to stop that from happening. They didn't want them to make a state since the 30s. So it's because of fucking politics, right? To me, this does not paint any people as being inherently corrupt or immoral, because in 1948, or for the decades between whenever and whenever, that nobody bothered to even try to create a state. You might ask some people, I don't know, maybe they're farmers, and they're like, good haul this year. Hey, should we try to create a state? He's like, what do you mean? How our whole, how you can go all the way from the river to the sea, and everyone kind of speaks our same language, and we all kind of have pretty similar food and way of dress and way of talking and stuff like that. We're all kind of on the same vibe, Well, we should probably go to this place in New York City where leaders and representatives from a bunch of countries in Europe all get together and they decide who's a nation and stuff. Maybe we could do that. I kind of don't want to go do that. I want to just... we're gonna just stay here and keep living our lives, and actually instead of whatever all that is. I don't even know what are these guys. Where's New York? What is that? I'm just assuming a fuckload of people who all knew and appreciate their own culture because they talk with people just like everyone else. They like trade stories and talk and live in a society. I bet it never occurred to many of those people, and there's no reason to blame them for it, that they don't have to go out and like get their whole land like stamped and certified by something. Right? Maybe if they knew everything, if all Palestinians were, if you could prove that everyone born in Palestine before 48 and who is Arabic is omniscient, maybe you would have an argument for like, well, if they're omniscient, what do they get genocide for? They could have all sort of like worked out a way around that. You'd think an omniscient person would basically just float through life and never fuck up ever. Yeah, you might think that. But I don't think all of them were omniscient. I don't think anyone was omniscient. I think it's a really crazy thing to try to flame the Palestinians for never bothering to even try to create a state before 48. Because like what they were doing was just like doing whatever the fuck they do. They're just living their life. It's probably cyclical, you know, just like anyone else on Earth. They like do different shit in different seasons, but then kind of have like a rhythm. They're just doing that. Ultimately, they're just trying to eat, survive, thrive, dance, sing, read, talk. That's all they were doing. They're just people. People in a place. That's what they were. So we're people, and we're in a place. And that place is on panel 3. That's right. We're moving through the debate. It's almost an hour into this stream, and we're almost halfway through our half hour. Remember, this whole page is just 1/2 hour. Oh, sorry. Oh my God, you can't even see what I'm looking at. You can't even see it. Okay. This half of the page here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 panels. This is the first half hour of the debate. So before we get started, it's already at 50 minutes in, but I feel like I'm still just like warming up to this. I feel like it's still in warm-up zone. We were just talking about Benny's arguments. Okay, now we're gonna. He picks up. He basically, after he talks about the statelessness thing, Lex Friedman turns to Moeen and says, "Could you speak to 1948 and the historical significance of it?" What happens after this is Moeen gives us 848 words that I will summarize thusly. Zionism's core objective demanded Jewish political, demographic, and territorial supremacy, akin to how England is English, making coexistence impossible without Palestinian subjugation. The UN's partition plan unjustly placed Europe's moral failure, the Holocaust, on Palestinians, despite Jews being primarily in Europe post-World War II. And the UN resolution giving 55% of Palestine to Jews, who were 33% of the population, inverted reality, ensuring ethnic cleansing. I actually have 2 pull-out quotes. This purple right here is actually also a pull-out quote, because it answers something that Benny Morris said, which was his last thing about how Palestinians failed to establish a state. Moeen says, since the 1930s, the Zionist and Hashemite leaders of Jordan colluded to prevent the establishment of an independent Arab state in Palestine in the late 40s. So that's his answer to that. Now, we can look into that claim more. Right now, I'm going to wait till, if one of these guys want to try to contest that. Pestiny, what do you know about the Zionist and Hashemite leadership of Jordan colluding? You know anything about that, you fucking pest? Get the fuck out of my face, you gross piece of shit. I hate that guy so much. Oh, God. That's why it's taking so long, is I'm just avoiding going to have to talk about this fucking freak. Oh, there's people that fucking piss you off. There's people that just kind of make you smile. Like Moeen Rabbani. He's a class act, man. He does great. But if I could summarize all of his, I think he said it kind of in the combination of these two quotes here. The Nakba was the inevitable consequence of the partition, given the nature of Zionism, and that it thoroughly inverted the relationship between the two communities. Thoroughly inverted. When they're drawing lines on Israel, they're just like, rip this community in half, and then rip that community in 3 pieces, and let's disconnect the parts that are Palestine, so that if you're Palestinian and you want to go maybe to your friend's fucking house who's in a different town, you have to walk through Israel to get there. And so Israel's just going to put up a bunch of fucking walls and gates and things, and if you try to get through without permission, we'll fucking shoot your ass. Otherwise, you got to stand in line for 4 hours, and then once you get to the front of the line, we're going to slap you around, tickle you, see what you got under your pants there, fuck around with you, scare you a little bit, and then you'll be on your way. Sounds like a great deal. Why don't you want this thing? Why wouldn't they even think about signing it? I mean, it's a fucked up deal, right? It's a fucked up deal. They didn't give a fuck about Palestine. All they were doing was just giving Zionists the head start and the precedent to be like, okay, well, you got a state. That means you can have an army. That means you can have a monopoly on violence. That means if anyone fucking steps 1 foot into your sovereign territory, you can fuck them up. You can shoot them. You can torture them. Whatever you want to do. I don't care. You got a state now. Congratulations. You're a state now. Harry, you're a state. As soon as I start trying to do a Hagrid impression, that's when I get Haggard. More like it. Ooh, that's strong coffee. Okay, so Moeen gives a very good talk. He, I think, makes three points that kind of all really complement the first point, which is this was all being planned by Zionists for decades before it happened. This was foreseeable, let's say. Not in its exactness, right? Because it's like, you're like, wait, I really want to go take over my neighbor's house, but I got to kind of find the right time. Hopefully we find a good time to do it. And then one day, your neighbor's dude drunkenly coming over to your house and throws a fucking brick through your window. You're like, that's it. I'm taking this fucking house. And you go back over there and you drag his whole family out of their house and murder them. Burn the house to the ground. And you're like, he started it, dude. I wasn't ever going to do that, but he started it. So, he started it, but I finished it. Yeah. It doesn't sound good. That doesn't sound good as an excuse. So after that beautiful 848 words, directly related to exactly what Lex had asked him to do, he spoke for a little bit less time than Norm did. By the way, after Norm talked, this guy was visibly uncomfortable and said, thank you. Norm asked that we make a lengthy statement in the beginning. right? He is nervous about his podcast having too much time spent with one person talking. He's like, oh no, if one person talks for too long, it's going to get boring. So after he asks to, honestly, he keeps asking about 1948, right? He just ignores all these things. He says, perhaps you can comment broadly on the question of 1948. What's the question? I guess his question is, what to you is important to understand about the events of 1948? Right? He doesn't get very specific. He doesn't talk about like in Palestine. He doesn't talk about the Nakba or the war or the UN Council or whatever. He just like sums it all up as 1948. So Moeen talks a lot about the truth of the matter in 1948. He also talked about before that, because he wanted to point out that this was never Palestine's fucking problem. The problem is that after the Holocaust, you had a shitload of refugees in Europe who kind of weren't safe anywhere. And that was a huge part, I dare say 100%, due to fucking Europeans. Now, later on, I think they're going to talk about, like, a few people here and there, like that Hitler had some, what am I going to say? Hitler had some allies in the Arabic world here and there. But I think even both sides, even the pro-Israel side, will concede that didn't materially affect the reality of the outcome of the Holocaust, right? Whether they had like a propaganda mouth here or there, wasn't gonna make a difference, right? So the Holocaust and then the fallout of it that has lasted continuing to now, the scale of how much of an atrocity that was, those wounds do not heal, especially in the immediate years afterwards. There was a literal like physical problem of like, whoa, we lost everything. Where do we go? We're picking up the pieces. People who've lost all of their family trying, released from a fucking prison or a death camp. What do I do now? Where do I go? What's happening? There's a crisis because it's like, you know what I mean? A fucking giant crisis started in Europe by Germans, Nazi Germans. But you know what? There was a lot. It's not like Nazi Germans were just like this one little country where like all the guys got real bad ones. And all the French and all the English and everyone else was very woke and shit. They were all very, very woke and like super, anti-racist. No! Everyone is fucking racist. Everyone is fucking anti-Semitic. The United States, they could have literally averted the Holocaust. Nowadays you wouldn't appreciate it anymore if it wasn't as bad as it was. Right? Oh, God forbid, what if we were saying, the Holocaust is the biggest atrocity when over 1 million Jews were killed, right? I mean, that's an ungodly high number. 1 million is. But no, it went full out. 6 million Jews, 11 million people total or whatever, it was an ungodly, unimaginable tragedy on a scale that you just literally can't imagine. It would take you longer than your whole life to like imagine it, to properly appreciate it. You couldn't literally, if you wanted to learn about the fate of 1 million people and you wanted to like learn about each one of them, you could study them like 2 minutes a day, or 2 minutes on each person, and then every day you just do that for 8 hours a day. just read about a different person and another person and then another person and then another person for like 12 hours a day. And like 38 years later, you'll have finished reading about 1 million people. 1 million. It's a whole career of full-time work. Right? And you could maybe, conceivably, arguably, have appreciated or met or talked about or considered 1 million people. You're not going to remember any of that. You're going to remember a few people in that here and there. But millions. It's just an unfathomably big number, right? And that is on the lap of racist Europeans who are like, let's just make it the Palestinians' problem. And nobody had a fucking problem with that. Nobody. Why would they? Why would they fucking care? They don't respect anybody who isn't white. Right? And by they, remember, I'm talking about the UN councils, the United Nations, the leaders of the quote-unquote free world. Those are some scary quotes, by the way. The free world. Freedom isn't free. Well, then why do you call it freedom? Maybe instead you should call it, fuck you, I get to do what I want, not you, though. Dumb. With a B. Dumb. All right, so then we get to good old Lexany. What does Lex do? In response to Benny Morris's wonderful opener, he chastises him. He hallucinates bullshit. Or, okay, I'm going to say he didn't technically hallucinate this. Moeen never once mentioned Britain. But he did say, when he was talking about, he said, akin to how England is English. Right? He's quoting someone who's talking about how the Zionists at the time conceived of what a Jewish country would be. He's like, it would have political, demographic, and territorial supremacy akin to how the English have that over England. So therefore, England is English. They want this land to be Jewish. The land is Jewish, just like English land is English, right? So he made that comparison. And then at another point, he does briefly mention the UK. He says the UK, the USA, they certainly could have done their part to take in these refugees at the end of World War II. They could have done that. They didn't. USA did not do that. The USA was like, no. We don't want fucking foreigners and poor immigrants and war-torn motherfuckers. No, fuck all that. If we want them, we will bring them in one at a time and set them up with some very sketchy employment agreements. Thank you very much. We're not going to just let a bunch of people come here. That would be crazy. That would be communist. Yeah, dick. So he briefly mentions the UK. He never said Britain. He said the UK. He said England is English as a comparison of the conception. He also said French is France, or France is French. England is English, right? He said that. He's kind of making this up. So what does Lex say in response? He says, we may talk about Zionism, Britain, UN assemblies, and all the things you mentioned. He's not paying fucking attention. Lex is not paying attention. In Lex's mind, Moeen is going way off topic and talking about all these unrelated things. I asked you about 1948, not about Zionism. Just the phrase, we may talk about Zionism. Lex, you're hosting a debate of Israel-Palestine on your fucking podcast, and you invited Norm Finkelstein and Benny Morris to each choose a partner and come on. I don't know if that's how they did it, but you're hosting an Israel-Palestine debate. And 15 minutes in, you say, we may talk about Zionism. You may talk about Zionism? It's like saying, oh, we're gonna have a football game, and we may throw the ball. We may throw the ball. Well, it's certainly possible you're going to throw the ball if you're having a football game, you dick. Yeah. What? The fact that he talks about it as if it's somehow off topic. The significance of 1948. He's talking about what was happening in 1948 and before, which Lex explicitly asked for. He said, also tell us what's happening before that and the roots of all this. That's all he was doing. That's all Moin Rabbani was doing. He was given exactly the answer. He was exactly in the ballpark of the question of the debate. And this asshole comes in and goes, we may talk about Zionism, Britain, UN assemblies, and all the things you mentioned. Bitch, UN assemblies? The first fucking thing that Norm says is about the UN assemblies. Dude, what do you mean? Well, maybe we could talk about UN assemblies. I don't care about that. Bro. Okay, let's see. First sentence, after World War II, the British decided they didn't want to deal with the Palestine question anymore. He mentions British. Norm mentions Britain. Then, second sentence, the UN. Now he brings up United Nations. Was not attempting to arbitrate or adjudicate rights or wrongs. It was confronting a very practical problem. There were two national communities in Palestine that were irreconcilable differences on fundamental questions. Okay, his fifth sentence, the UN Special Committee on Palestine, which came to being before the UN Partition Resolution, right? UNSCOP. He also mentions the United Nations General Assembly, and he also mentions UNSCOP. So this is like a special committee within the UN Generals, right? So there's the special committee, and then there's the General Assembly one, right? He mentions it so many times. He mentions it so... I would say Norm's opening statement sort of revolves around it. I would argue that it is one of the pillars of his opening statement. And hey, if I'm wrong, tell me. I would love you to tell me that Norm fucking Finkelstein didn't mention the UN in his opening statement. Because I've got it here in black and white and pink, kind of. All right? The partition resolution. It was literally in his conclusion. The partition resolution is in the fucking thing. So why is Lex chastising Moin Rabbani for going off topic and saying, well, we may talk about all that nonsense later? Zionism, Britain, and UN assemblies. We may talk about that. Why? Okay, Lex, if Zionism, Britain, and UN assemblies are somehow off topic of your question of 1948, then why the fuck didn't you say anything to fucking Norman Finkelstein? Or is it that you fucking hate the brown guy? I have a suspicion that you just don't like this guy. I'm very suspicious that Lex is harboring some very deep racist attitudes towards Moin Rabbani, and that he's not even fucking listening to him. He's hearing him. He's hearing him because to Lex, the only thing he's hearing is he heard the word England. He heard the word UN's partition plan, UN committee, probably. Zionism? What do you mean fucking... That's the whole thing, dude. He's like, okay, I want to talk about Israel and Palestine, but, you know, I don't want you to get off topic and start talking about, like, Zionism. Like, what do you mean off topic? Off topic Zionism. Let's talk about climate change, but let's just really stay off of the whole, like, air. Don't talk about anything that's happening in the air when we talk about climate change. When it's fine, we can talk about climate change. Just stop talking about like the air temperature and shit. Stop talking about the makeup of the atmosphere. Stop. Oh my God, why are you talking about like what the atmosphere is made of or the conditions of the atmosphere? I'm here to talk about weather. Okay? Stay on topic. Jeez, you're just... I asked you about climate change and the weather, and you start talking about like air temperature and like precipitation and like parts per million of carbon. Like, fuck that, dude. Stay on topic. I'm talking about the earth. The earth is not air. The earth is the dirt and shit and the rocks. Talk about how the rocks are. Are the rocks hotter? Are the rocks hotter than they used to be or what? God damn it. These scientists are so fucking idiot. They're such idiots. You know who knows the least about science? Scientists. You know who knows the most? Me. I know more science than literally every single scientist put together. And I know more about the human body than every single doctor that has ever existed or ever will exist, all combined into a single super brain of expertise. Guess what? They're stupid, dumb, drooling idiots compared to how smart I am. That's the mind of Lex Friedman. Lex Friedman. Okay, so he's also incredibly... Ooh, what's the word I'm looking for? When you look down on other people in this, like, really fucking smug way. Is it called being smug? I think it's called being smug. Yeah, he's so fucking smug. Maybe I'm imagining it being more smug than it really is. So why don't we review that? Let's watch that part. So this is right before Pestyny's first statement, because this is right after Moeen does his first statement. Fucking Lexifer Johnson.
In Palestine. And here I think we need to
I haven't been listening to the stream to check the sound quality. I don't know if this is even going to be listenable, but we don't need to listen to it that much. I just want to get to the part where we can see the dumb little smirk on the face of Lexifer. Friedman. I think I'm Friedman. I think it is Friedman, but it's definitely not Friedman.
Forcing people into return and prevent the return, and it can systematically was Zionist eluded key points.
After Steven, if you want to. Again, if we can keep it to just one statement.
Oh, again, if you can just keep it to one statement moving forward. One dude, okay, he spoke for less time. He said fewer words than Norm Finkelstein. You admitted that Norm had asked that, quote unquote, we make a lengthy statement in the beginning. Because that's how fucking debates work, you dick. He didn't even go on as long as Norm. And you fucking chastise him and you tell him to limit it to one statement. This is one statement. He touched on 3 broad topics. He actually organized his speech incredibly well. What? Such a disrespectful fucking dickhead, Lex Friedman. You should fucking be ashamed of yourself. You ever There's no way he has the kind of self-reflection to actually watch himself back and be critical except that he forgot to help, that he wishes he could have helped out Betty Morris even more. Set up Destiny for it. So I mean, God, that's the thing when you review debates, is that it takes exponentially longer to get through them. And again, I don't recommend anybody watch this stream right now. I mean, hey, if you're watching it, you're watching it. I don't care. You can watch it. But you don't have to watch this, and I definitely don't recommend that you watch it. Okay? This stream might be good to sleep to. Except I occasionally start screaming, and I'm sorry. If you're trying to sleep to this, I just go back to sleep. I'm just yelling for nothing. I'm yelling at my friend Lex Friedman because he's making me mad, and because he's pissing me off. He's pissing me off. And it's because he's it's just frustrating to see someone in a position of power with the potential to spread positive, truthful messages that could conceivably assist in blowing the wind that turns the sails that moves the progress of humanity slightly out of this frankly cartoonishly evil situation that we find ourselves in. But no, instead he's just going to swing for the fascists. He's just going to go to bat for the Zionists like it's I don't know, as if it's like, if he thinks, I don't know what the fuck he thinks. How could I get into his fucking head? I honestly don't understand. If you're not an evangelical Christian, or I suppose an Israeli, why do you care so much about there being a Jewish state? If you're an evangelical Christian, I can sort of understand on one hand that you think it's part of biblical prophecy. But on the other hand, if it's fucking biblical prophecy, that means it's the will of God, and literally nothing we could do or not do would ever thwart it. So why wouldn't you stand up against genocide? And what, you're afraid that if too many people stand up against genocide, then like God's prophecies won't come true anymore? Because it sounds like your God is kind of weak and kind of fucked, and maybe not worth worshiping. I don't know, man. All my homies think genocide is not cool. So they're whatever that's worth. I don't know what that's worth. That might not be worth anything. But if you want to know, me and my homies, we don't fuck with it. We don't fuck with war. Just saying. Just saying. Lex Friedman is a fucking weasel. Weaselly wobbly fuckhead. I'm very, very disappointed in his ass for what he's doing, for the opportunity he's not only throwing in the trash, he's like throwing it inside of some kind of a hot spinning garbage can that when you throw more trash in it, it blows up and burns everyone's eyes and melts their like nylon jackets, or, you know, like poly plastic made clothes, starts to melt them against their bodies. That's what it is. You know, you can say that's not what it is, but I'm just saying that's maybe what it is. Oh boy. All right. We may talk about Zionism, Brittany, or something. Oh, fuck you. Steven comes in and says, it feels like the goal is to moralize everything first and then to pick up and choose facts that kind of support the statement of your initial moral statement afterwards. Fuck off, man. This is everything boiled down. He doesn't say shit. He says 540 words. He he says even fewer like factual points. He repeats himself. He repeats himself committing factual like straw men on 2 different occasions. He says that the other side, the pro-Palestinian side, will never admit that the Palestinians rejected the partition resolution. After listening to these 3 people, he comes in and goes, a lot of people don't know that there was a partition resolution and the Arabs didn't agree to it. Like, this is the height of like, whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Like, this guy literally wasn't paying attention to anything. He's just reading. He didn't do any research into these guys. What he does admit later on is that he's watched lots of debates with Norm. He's watched lots of debates and interviews with Norm. He's watched Norm do interviews, and he watched him do debates, and that's how he prepped for this. Now, he obviously didn't watch very closely. Like, he didn't watch it to like understand Norm's ideas. He didn't watch it to understand like his positions. He watched it to try to catch little things that he says. All right, we're gonna get to that when we cover I guess hour 1 part 2, which will be the second half of the hour, from 30 minutes to 60 minutes. I believe that's when that comes up. So we'll get to that next time. Another interesting thing, Destiny provides the first leg of our first major contradiction. And when I say major contradiction, here's what I mean. When Destiny is spewing his bullshit about how nobody ever says that blah, 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 right? Nobody ever says blah, 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 blah. Literally the 2 guys before you said it, they talked about it in great detail, in great depth, but you weren't listening. You're just reading your little prepared statement, attacking straw men. In the middle of that, he says, I never hear about the fact that the majority of the land that was acquired by purchases from Jewish organizations of Palestinian Arabs of the Ottoman Empire before the mandatory period in 1920 even started. The majority of the land that was acquired happened by purchases. Oh, interesting. Oh, and let's hang on to that for a second. So Destiny is trying to paint this idea that, oh, wait a minute. You mean it was just like a purchase, a buyer and a seller shaking hands and agreeing? Wow. I guess since that happened before 1920, I guess Israel gets to do genocide now. Like, talk about a fucking red herring. A red herring, a non sequitur, maybe is more appropriate. Complete non sequitur. I think what he is trying to do is put a picture into the mind of dummies who don't know anything, and I'm talking about myself. He's trying to put in my mind a dummy that, like, they weren't fighting for the land. They were, like, buying it and shit. The Arabs were selling their land. In fact, they may have been irresponsibly selling it. He goes on later to quote King Abdullah of Jordan, which just completely out of the blue. Obviously not. I guess what he's trying to point out is at least that there was this idea that there was a stereotype about Arabs, quote unquote, selling their land, as if it's something Arabs do more than anyone else or something. And when it's like, well, if there's people in this place where, this place where everyone's an Arab, like, anytime a land sale happens, an Arab would be involved. Right? So it's just a strange fucking thing. Even if King Abdullah of Jordan did actually say this, which it could be a fucking let them eat cake type of shit, where like, oh, the first recording of this quote was written like 200 years after it happened, or whatever. The Arabs are as prodigal in selling their land as they are in weeping about it. And then he repeats, I never hear about the multiple times the Arabs rejected partition. You never hear about that, buddy? You never hear about it? Oh, I wonder why that is. Why is it that you never hear about that? It's because you're not fucking listening. You're not paying attention. He never hears about it. The majority of the land that was acquired happened by purchases. Guys, the land, they didn't steal most of it. Most of that stuff we acquired through purchases. Most of it. The majority of the land, he says. Guys, the majority of the land was purchased. It wasn't stolen. They literally bought it. It was a fucking signed agreement with a deed and everything, guys. Why are you so angry? Why do you think that Zionists were like violent? Literally, they were just selling and buying the land, bro. That's how a majority of the land came out. So dummy me is listening to this debate and thinking, oh, okay, well, that's an interesting fact, but that is not swaying this anyway. He's talking about pre-1920, right? And it's fine if you want to go back to 1920, but you have to like connect it back, right? Because the topic, buddy, is we're talking about 48 and the before 48 in terms of things that lead up to it, or things that influence it, or things that caused it, right? If we talk about a point in the past, it might be important to say what had happened, right? What had happened was, before that point in the past, once we had had. Before we had. Okay? That's the idea. But you're going to pre-1920, and you're talking about how like a lot of people, quote unquote, majority of land that was acquired when? Ever? Or just pre-1920? He's not clear about this. He purposely leaves these kind of statements vague, up for interpretation. The land that was acquired. What do you mean? What do you mean? You're saying the majority of all the land to today that was formerly Palestine and is now Israel, you're saying the majority of that land was acquired pre-1920? Are you fucking stupid? There's no fucking way that's true. So the only thing you could possibly mean is that of land purchased by Jews before 1920, of the land that before 1920 was acquired by Jews, the majority of that was purchased from Jewish organizations. That's the only thing it could mean. And in that case, what in the fuck does it have to do with anything? It doesn't have anything to do with the topic at hand, with the thing at hand for today, right? What we're talking about today is 1948 and the times around that led, because it's the Nakba. This is a fucking, it's a non sequitur if you look at it closely. But what is it functionally? It is a red herring. It's a red motherfucking herring. What is a red herring? God dang it. Do I got to explain everything to you guys? Red herring is a dried smoked herring, which is turned red by smoke. No, it's number 2. It's a clue or a piece of information that is intended to be misleading or distracting. That is what we're looking at in this debate. This is a red herring because it is non sequitur, right? But its purpose is to distract. So a dummy like me is going to watch this debate. You know, by now, if they had watched, let's say they started watching the debate when I started this stream, they would be well past the point that we're talking about by now. And they might not remember much from Pestyny's opening statement. I know the first time I listened to it, I didn't retain hardly anything. I don't think I retained anything except his little quip about how like Arabs don't know how to do anything except use the tools of war or something like that. But just as likely, someone might have pretty much blended a lot of what he said, but they might remember that he said something about the majority of the land was purchased before 1920 or in 1920 or something like that. Yeah, he said something like that. Yeah, actually, and then that dummy is going to go on and talk to, see some pro-Palestinian activist on the street, and he'll say something like, well, you guys don't even know the history. Most of the land was actually purchased fair and square. It wasn't stolen. Because you're going to have heard this fuck ass say that shit when it's not true. And even if it was true, it has nothing to do with the fucking genocide happening now. Even if they were 100% true about all of their 47, 48 bullshit, it doesn't justify what's happening now. Not in any way. No way, no how. All right. So this is a red herring, but it gets even stupider. Because not only is this a red herring, it is directly contradicted by who? Benny Morris, your partner, the people on the same side of the table. What did Benny Morris say? Benny Morris says, we're talking about a very small number, actually, of Arabs who were displaced as a result of land purchases in the Ottoman Empire. A very small number, actually. The majority. A very small number. The majority. Very small number. The majority. Very small number. Majority. Very small number. Majority. Very small number. Majority. Very small number. You get what I mean, okay? Now, he is talking about Arabs, people, whilst he is talking about land of Palestinian Arabs. Okay? So if you want to come at me and say this isn't a contradiction, fine, I will hear that argument. But as far as I'm concerned, this is a very blatant contradiction here. Steven just throws out a dumb fuck red herring. He talks very fast, by the way. His opening statement was like 3 minutes. Right? His opening statement was 10 minutes. It was good length of time to lay out a fucking case. He talked for 3 minutes. He talked fast. And he talked bullshit. He talked nonsense. And Benny had to contradict him the very next time that he was able to speak. Some people don't look at all the facts and some people cherry pick to support their political views. I wonder who. I wonder who did that. Oh, I sure hope they find the guy who did that. Arabs can't engage in diplomacy. They only use tools of war. The expulsion was their own fault. Fuck you, you dumb fucking Pestiny fucking piece of shit. You deserve to be in a fucking prison cell. Finkelstein is like, I don't fucking care. Okay, I've been streaming for an hour and 40 minutes. I swear to God, and all his children, and all that is holy, and all that the children find holy, I swear to all of those things, that when I started doing my recap of the first half hour, I intended to do a brief 5-minute recap. I swear to God. On my life. I did not mean to drag this out to about the length of a feature film just to talk about, God, I didn't even get through the first half hour. This is weird. I don't know how this project's going to go because I feel like it's sort of recursive. The first time, I think I watched the whole hour. The second time, we got through less and less and less of the debate. And now here I am. It's been 2 hours. And how far in are we? Okay, no, Pestiny comes in at the half-hour mark. Okay, so yeah, this is the first half hour. Before I was saying all 6 of these were the first half hour. It's these first 4 that are the first half hour. The half-hour mark happens in the middle of Pestiny's opening statement, right? That just gives you the idea. These 3 guys talked for about a half hour to make 3 statements. Pestiny comes in, talks for 3 minutes. Now we're back to the serious. The adults are talking. Shut the fuck up, Destiny. Adults are talking. The first thing he says is, I'd like to engage Professor Morris, if you don't mind. Bum, 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 bum. Benny. That's you, Benny Morris. We're going to talk to your ass now. So listen the fuck up. Here is my boiling down of Norm Finkelstein's 653 words. Bro, Benny, I am using your own book as a fucking source. You've said it yourself many times. Quote, transfer was inevitable and inbuilt into Zionism. Now, you could argue it was for the greater good like Roosevelt, but, and then basically just imagine repeating this 11,000 different times in different ways, using references from Benny Morris's own work. And Benny Morris has had enough. After 653 words, he says, you've made your point. He cuts him off. He's like, fine, you made your fucking point. You made your fucking point. Let me talk now. Let me talk now. By the way, we don't have any interruptions from Lex Friedman here now. We are free of the Friedman. He's taking his hands off the reins, and I say, good. You should keep your fucking mouth shut for the whole thing, you dick. You shouldn't even be there. You should be behind the fucking camera. You fucking dick. Anyway, so he's like, you've made your point. First, I'll take up something that Moeen said. Huh? 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 What's that fucking sound effect, that stupid meme that everyone does? Huh? Bro, he just dressed you the fuck down. He just dressed you down. He just tore you up. He dressed you down. He tore you up. He sucked you up. He spit you out. He chewed you up. He threw you out. You're gonna say some shit, dude? First I'll take up something that Moeen said. He said that the Nakba was inevitable and predictable. What, bro? What? What? Benny. Okay, Benny, you're not wrong. Moeen did say that. You're correct. But Benny, so did Norm. Not only did Norm say that, he points out that you said it. And so does Moeen. Moeen says it. He says it too, as have you. Benny, my buddy, my pal, my friend. Benny, you just got your fucking dick handed to you on a fucking platter with spicy sauce on it by Norman Finkelstein. He's read every book you've ever written 3 times over. He knows your shit better than you do. And he just schooled you. He pointed out that it's your own goddamn book, your own goddamn work, your own goddamn words where you said this shit. The Nakba was going to happen in some way or another, some form or another. They were going to drive those Arabs out of their country, whether or not the Arabs wanted to sign a paper giving them permission to do it, or whether they didn't sign the paper, or whether they were fucking military skirmishes and resistance, or whether there weren't. How does he know that? Because you fucking did the work, you dick. And now here you are sitting next to Stephen Bonell as your compatriot on the fighting the good fight in favor of the state of Israel with the fucking sex pest piece of shit dumb fuck who's just couldn't be much worse in any way that I can imagine. Here you are. Norm calls you out on your shit. Now what are you saying? Let me talk to Moeen. Moeen, you were saying something about how the Nakba was inevitable? And Moeen very correctly, very politely, says, as have you. Now he's mad. Okay? As have you. Now he's fucking pissed. He goes, no, I never said that. It was inevitable and predictable only because the Arabs assaulted the Jewish community. After that quote, he does finally turn his attention back to Norm. It says, okay, now to adjust Norm. Some tenant farmers were displaced due to Jewish land sales under Ottoman British law, but it wasn't systematic or large scale before 1948. This is when we get we're talking about a very small number, actually, of Arabs who were displaced. You know why? You know why he's saying that he's trying to minimize the number of Arab tenant farmers that were displaced due to land sales? Because he understands that is transfer, that is expulsion. Just because it says it's a sale doesn't mean the people who were driven off the land had any fucking say in it. These were deals made in back rooms by societies that were talking over the heads of anyone who actually lived on the ground. Benny Morris understands that. He doesn't want to argue that, it was just sales. That argument works fine for Destiny and his bullshit. Because to him, that's a thought-ending cliche of like, it wasn't taken, it was sold. Right? Benny is not about that. He's like getting called out because they both know that quote unquote land sales and displacement of farmers is just as bad as no land sale and displacement of farmers. They both understand that. This asshole doesn't fucking understand any of that. That's all well beyond him. He's not playing that game. He is not here for that. But he is, because he just got his shit fucking kicked in by normal Finkelstein. Okay? Normal Finkelstein. Normal. Okay, his second point, broadly. These are the broad strokes of his word. I actually forgot to count how many words he said. Anyway. Zionist movement / parties / pre-state institutions never formally adopted expulsion as policy before 1947 or 48. I mean, if it whatever. We'll treat those as 1 year. As there was strong moral opposition within Jewish leadership. Oh, interesting. Ooh, interesting. Why would they be opposed to it? Why would they be morally opposed to it? I mean, Destiny says it's totally fine. There were land purchases. What do you mean? Why would the Jewish leadership have more strong moral opposition to that? Oh, that's yeah. So they didn't adopt this as official policy because there was a strong moral opposition to doing what they did. Yeah, I mean, before 1947, we never adopted that into policy because a lot of people were telling us that they had strong, moral opposition. People within our own religion were, morally opposed to it. So we're good, right? We're good. Before we did that bad thing we did, everyone thought it was bad. Okay? But you fucking did it anyway? Oh, but that's because of the war. That's because of Arab aggression. He says the mass displacement of Arabs was primarily during the 1948 war initiated by Arab aggression. And it's still happening today. And here we finally get to the main feature of tonight's program, which is, why is Benny Morris such a fucking... Why is he so dead inside? What must constitute to make such an ugly and hate-filled soul as someone like Benny Morris? Because, to be honest, he seems like an affable guy. He seems like he's kind of jolly. I mean, I don't know, if I didn't know the guy and, I was in a coffee shop and he turned and said oh, excuse me, I'd say oh yeah, no problem, sir. And I'd give him a nice smile. Have a good one. Have a nice afternoon. Oh, it seemed like a nice guy, whatever. I wouldn't have known anything about him. And I wouldn't have thought that his heart was made of pure rot. We've got rot. Skylar, we've got rot. Where's the rot? Everything. His entire insides are rotted out. The man literally, I don't think it's physically possible for him to contain a soul, morals. His sense of morality is so uncalibrated that he says this. And I've talked about this on the stream before. We've read this. We've raged about it. We've cried. We've screamed. In fact, I think reading this has actually ended 2 of my streams. 2 times I reached this point in the debate. And then once I read this, I basically lost my mind and then wore myself out and been like, okay, we got to pick this up later. And then we try to review from the top and we slowly make our way. And then finally, a couple hours later, I finally get back to this part again and I read it again and I lose my fucking mind again. But why do I hate Benny Morris? Why am I maybe even more disturbed by this even than Destiny. Well, one thing is that I can't laugh at this. I can't mock it for its stupidity. I mean, I kind of can, but that's not the reaction I feel. I don't feel like mocking this for its stupidity. I feel like weeping for the condition of humanity that a person who could say such a thing is in a respectable enough position that they could be invited onto a podcast to sit proudly with other people in society and spew his fucking bullshit. Understanding the full concept, okay, even at the time, what was happening in Gaza at this moment during this debate. I can't even. They were leveling it. They were leveling the whole city. They were doing the atrocities. They were just killing, stomping, blowing up, booming, lying in the press, lying everywhere, killing, children, mothers, wives, sisters, brothers, killing men, killing old people, killing young people, killing everyone. Bombing. You can't just like, it gets diluted the more you say it, but I haven't said bombing as many times as bombs were dropped. It's on a scale that you can't fucking fathom. The atrocities that were occurring during, at the same time, contemporaneously with this debate. And here's what Benny Morris said. The Palestinians have never actually agreed to pay for their mistakes. They've made mistakes. They attack. They suffer as a result. And we see something similar going on today in the Gaza Strip. They do something terrible. They kill 1,200 Jews. They abduct 250 women and children and babies and old people and whatever. And then they start screaming, please save us from what we did, because the Jews are counterattacking. And this is what happened then. And this is what's happening now. There's something fairly similar in this situation here. I'm going to get some water. You all sit with that for a second. Oh my God. When read in context, the full context of when this was said by whom, this is the most fucked up, ugly, disgusting thing in the whole debate so far. Right? Second only to Arabs can't engage. No, not second to. With shortly behind it is Destiny's Arabs can't engage in diplomacy. They only use tools of war. Whatever. I expect it from trash like him. And ultimately, nobody gives any fucking weight to what... Nobody except the smoothest of all brains gives any weight to anything that this fuckass has to say. But Benny Morris, respected historian, saying this kind of shit? The respected historian? The scholar? The intellectual? The published author? The pioneer, the leader in his field? Saying this shit? It curdles, it makes my blood run cold. It curdles my brain that he could say this shit. That number just seems so small. I know it's a big number. I know, and before I was talking about how absolutely world-endingly fucked it would be to have 200 people in your village all slaughtered on the same day. Right? And it would be. So in that sense, sure. 1,200. Ooh. Ooh, 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 ooh. That's going to leave a scar. That's going to scar a whole people for a long time. Sure. Absolutely. I'm not going to argue with that. So what do you do in response? Let's multiply it by 10. And instead of doing it on one day, we'll do it every day forever. Right? When it's 100,000, when you want to multiply this by 100, then this number doesn't fucking mean shit. I mean, if you, hey, these are respectable numbers for serial killers or low level warlords. But if you're talking global atrocities, this is child's play. Okay? Palestinians could never compete with the Israelis in terms of numbers. There's no way. It's like I don't know. Who's the guy who like made the most basketball shoots? The guy who did basketball so many times better. Like imagine that guy going up against I don't know, who's a guy who like never ever played basketball. Like my neighbor, okay? My neighbor Dan. They'd be like comparing those things. Not in the same ballpark. So Benny Morris fucking sucks. He said just the most disgusting, ugly bullshit that throws me off. Every time I read it, it throws me off. I cannot deal with it. This is always where my stream ends. Because I just fucking, I can't go on. This is the point when I question, like, any of this. Is this even gonna... Is there... Why? Why? And how? How and why can this be? All right. Well, I'm wasting too much time. We might as well wrap it up. We're at 2 hours. I don't want to make these... I don't want to do these 4-hour streams anymore. We're going to do 2 hours. Again, we're taking everything slow. Now, if you watched today's stream, I'm very sorry that I didn't, well, no, I'm not sorry for anything. Okay, I'm sorry for one thing. What I meant to do was to talk through everything that was written on this first half of the page in like 5 or 10 minutes. And then the next, like hour and 40, I was going to start filling out the second half of this page to get to the end of the hour so we could finish the review of hour 1. But we didn't do that. What we did today instead was just review the first half hour up till when.
There probably wouldn't have been a refugee problem. This position. Sometimes they bought land years of the period. But there was dispossession in one way. They didn't possess the land. A war, and actually people pay for their mistakes. There's something fairly similar in the situation of Jewish itself, but most of the Arabs in the Jewish state idea of partition because it made sense.
Offensive war.
talking about transfer after 1938.
So just to clarify,
Okay, let me put this. Can't see it on the stream. I always forget what I'm showing. Look at Norm.
The British democracy.
Just look at Norm as he's finishing this horrifying collection of words known as a rebuttal. As he's finishing this rebuttal, watch when it cuts to Norm. See it? Look at this face. And then Lex comes in. Why don't we finish with Lex? Because this is another clear sign that Lex is very much trying to swing for the Zionists. Lex comes in and he says, so just to clarify, what you're saying is that 47 was an offensive war, not a defensive war. By the Arabs. Yes, by the Arabs. Yeah. And so you're saying that there was never a top-down policy of expulsion. Yes, just to clarify the point. Okay, so as the moderator, he's just going to just to clarify, this thing that you never said that would make your side sound better and more easy for the smooth brains to understand is that the Arabs were doing an offensive war, not a defensive war. I mean, that seems like a kind of, you're attacking people in your own land who have taken it over. Couldn't you? Isn't it at least arguable whether it's offensive or defensive, or maybe it's a little bit of both? Maybe you're doing offensive war in order to get people off of your land. So, like, if I steal your house and I'm like having a barbecue in the front yard, and then you finally come back and try to kick the shit out of me and take your house back, can I say, oh, that was an offensive attack on the part of this guy coming trying to get his house back? I don't know. And then he says, you're also saying that there was never a top-down policy. It's not exactly what he said. He said it was never official. What did he say? It was never officially. It was never policy of the Zionist movement before 47. So I don't know if any of you guys out there are mathematical number experts like me, but 47 is before 48. It's 1 year before. When Lex is summarizing that point, he doesn't say when. He says there was never. It's a funny thing about the word never is that if you don't put brackets around it, if you don't say there was never something between this and that date, or there was never something before, or there was never something after, or you put some blocks, if you just say there was never, well, there's no blocks. That word extends as far into the past or the future as you like. There was never a top-down policy. Right? I could say there was never a Santa Claus. He never existed. He never will exist. There was never a top-down policy of expulsion. And then he just says yes. There was a top-down policy of expulsion in 1947, a year before 1948, which is what your ass is asking about. Lexifer Friedman? You're like, well, what happened in 48 and maybe also 47 or 49, things that happened before 48. That's what you asked for, you dick. And in 47, which is the year before 48, They enacted a top-down policy of expulsion. So if you're like, oh, just to clarify, I just want to clarify this. Do you want to clarify it, or do you want to fucking muddy the goddamn waters? Because I think that's what you're actually doing, you fuck. You're trying to muddy the goddamn waters. There was never a policy, a top-down policy of expulsion. First of all, there was. It just wasn't enacted in certain laws or whatever. Like, it wasn't on the political party platform. Why not? Oh, because many of the... How did he say it? What did he say? This is Benny Morris saying, he says the expulsion transfer were never a policy of the Zionist movement before 47. It doesn't exist in Zionist platforms of the various political parties. Jewish politicians and leaders who would have said, no, this is immoral. You kind of answered your own question there, which is, yeah, it was a big part of Zionism, but people didn't really announce it as their policy or platform of a political party, because a lot of leaders said it would have been immoral. Not just to write it, but to do it. Turns out, in general, Jewish people are not down with genocide. Not at all. It's a lot of the people, the actual people who take their religion seriously, who are like, no, that's fucking immoral to do this. To expel people from their land, to genocide them, is wicked immoral. The normal people saw this, okay? We're talking about Zionists, this class of leaders of this movement. These are not normal people. In order to even be okay with this, there's this very long-standing and complicated mechanism of indoctrination. And it's deeply, deeply embedded into the United States, and it's obviously deeply embedded into Israel itself. Occupied Palestine, as I should call it. It's immoral. It wasn't official policy. Never until 47. Oh, so you're saying it was fucking policy literally the year before the point in history that we're talking about. So Lex, just to clarify, you're saying 47 was an offensive war. You're also saying that there was never a top-down policy of expulsion. Yes, exactly. There was never one until 1947. By the way, what are we talking about again? 1948. Oh, so yeah, there was in fact an explicit top-down policy of expulsion, wasn't there? Just to clarify, you fucking dickhead, Lex Friedman, the world's suckiest dickhead. Just a fucking moron. Just to clarify, how about the exact opposite of what's true? And then Benny Morris is like, yeah. Yes. Yes, indeed. In fact, Lex, yeah. It was never a policy of expulsion. Yes, indeed. Never, ever. Not until God, what 1947? But yeah, no, never. We never had that as an official policy. Yeah, I mean, like before like 47, no, never had that. It was never a policy. Oh, I mean, obviously in 47, when the Arabs attacked, oh yeah, then it was official policy. But I'm talking about before that. Okay. It's just that we were asking about how 47 and 48, those years, the things that happened in 47 might have led to what happened in 48. So when you say it was never a top-down policy, what you mean is it was a top-down policy during the time frame that we're talking about? What are we doing here, guys? What the fuck are we doing here, you dickheads? I mean, I've seen some dickheads in my life be dickheads and talk about bullshit. Trust me, I have. I have seen it. But this is some dickheadery right here. This is some primo dickheadery. And you know what? You don't notice it the first time around. This is why we go through this shit slowly and carefully and meticulously. Because you can get fooled. You can get jerked around. And you might not even realize how hard they're jerking you. Oh, and do they jerk? Oh, do they do a number on you? They'll jerk you coming, they'll jerk you going. They'll jerk you and then call you a jerk for getting jerked. That's the kind of shit we're talking about. They'll jerk you left. They'll jerk you right. They'll jerk you down. They'll start to fight. They'll jerk you till your teeth are gone. Till you run. What rhymes with gone? Till your teeth are gone. Just octagon. Is this 449? I think this belongs to Benny over here. Or maybe it doesn't. You know what? We're going to worry about word counts on another day. I don't feel like counting words. I don't feel like doing any of this shit. You know what I feel like doing? Turning the goddamn stream off and doing something else. It's been 2 hours and 17 minutes. We got to go. Guys, who's watching this, by the way? You should not be watching this. This is boring as fuck. It's not good for you. It's not entertaining. I mean, maybe you're entertained. If you are, hey, who am I to judge? I'm not going to yuck your yums. You know what I mean? But that's enough for me. So thank you to Lex Friedman, Norman Finkelstein, Moin Rabbani, Pestiny Bonell, and of course, our jerk of the night, Benny Blackheart Morris. You, Benny, are a fucking piece of shit. You should be ashamed of yourself. I just hope you hear that, and I hope you fucking internalize it. I hope that for some reason you care what I think about you. Okay, first do that. Now, I think you fucking suck, and you need to fucking stop it, you piece of shit. Fuck you. Fuck you, Benny Morris.